TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Spin, Shuffle, Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. We're going to have a fun one here with this one because we're going to do a little deep dive into some Canadiana from, and I'm doing the math here, 24 years ago. So now I all of a sudden feel old. But before we do, I want to let you guys know, if you like listening to this show, and there can only be one, you can now hear us live on Live 365. So if you go to live365.com, or if you download the app, that way you can listen to it in your car as well, you can listen to the show 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, streaming all the way through. So by all means, please download the app, go to the website, bookmark and favorite the channel. You won't be disappointed. But here to go down this Canadiana road with me is our good friend Alex. Alex, welcome back to the show. How you doing, man?
I am well rested and ready to tackle this nostalgia-filled episode.
So I'm going to be very, very honest. I have never listened to this album before in my entire life. So I'm leaning on you on this one here. Why did you bring this album to the table?
Well, I want to start off by apologizing because
I was going to ask why you hate me, but you know,
I thought I had good memories. It turns out I only really knew the hits. I don't know. One of the things I really love to talk about is Canadian hits, and I felt like what better place to do that than here. And I don't know, with SoulDecision, it's like, especially within like the radio stations like Hot 89.9 and whatnot, like you say SoulDecision and every one of their DJs has something to say about that band and their own memories. I think it was Kenny B even said that he was in the music video for it. So for one of the songs.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I had never really paid much attention to SoulDecision. I am a hard rocking metalhead. I fully, will admit to that. But when you take a look at the impact that this album had, like when we're talking their debut album, no one does it better. And when you take a look at the impact that it had, not just in Canada, but on the other side of the border as well, like they got a lot of attention on MTV for Total Request Live, like surprising for a Canadian pop act.
Oh yeah. And like, obviously there's the standout lead singer, Trevor Guthrie, who, just I want to say within the last decade has come out with a song here and there with like throughout collaborating with techno DJs and dance producers and stuff. So some of them are still pretty active in the music world.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. It's almost like you were reading my notes here. In that, Trevor actually was nominated for a Grammy in 2014 for Best Dance Recording because of his contribution with Armin van Buuren on the song "This Is What It Feels Like." Now, they lost to "Clarity" by Zed and Foxes, but it's still, for a Canadian singer to be able to team up with someone like Armin van Buuren, who is extraordinarily talented, and to be Grammy nominated, like that's a huge kudo right there.
Oh yeah. And like, if you're going to lose in that category and that was your competition, it's it wouldn't be that hard of a blow. Like, it was two of the biggest dance songs of that time. So
yeah, I mean, that's like if you're Metallica and you lose to Jethro Tull. I mean, maybe it should be the other way around. I don't know. Too soon, or not soon enough. Quite possibly. But let's tell our listeners what we are about to do. We are about to go through the debut album of SoulDecision, the album No One Does It Better, and pick 3 songs off of this album: a spin, a shuffle, and a skip. The spin is the song that we would put on at any time. Like, this is, if someone asked you, what should you listen to off this album, this is probably the first song that you're going to play them. The shuffle is a song that comes on, and if it's on the radio or happens to be on a shuffle play, you're like, okay, cool, but maybe not the first track you pick. And the skip is the one where you would sit there and go, thank you, next. But let's get into this album first of all. The album was released February 22nd of 2000. It peaked at number 7 in Canada and number 103 in the US, and it's platinum in Canada. It also, I mentioned that there were some accolades from the other side of the border. This album hit number 1 on the Billboard Heat Seekers charts back then. So that tells you how big an album this was going to be. There were 5 singles off of this one. Faded hit number 1 in Canada and number 22 in the US. So let's start our journey here with our spin tracks. Alex, what are you spinning off this disc?
I am spinning Faded all day, every day.
I mean, I get it, right? Like, it's a decent song. It is. It's a good song. And of course, it got played a lot. The funny thing is, as I mentioned, this album was completely new to me. So I wasn't as familiar with Faded as you might be. So the thing is, the song didn't really have an impact on me. I had zero connection to it. Faded is actually none of my picks on this.
Oh.
Yeah. So, we're going to be deep diving, I think, into this disc here. But what is it about Faded that made you want to spin this?
Faded is commercial. It's pop. It's a little disco. It's also extremely controversial, which I didn't know about up until a couple years ago. Because when it originally aired, it had some questionable lyrics, and then when it gained the popularity, it actually got re-recorded and released. But if you have the single, this is gonna date me back a little bit too. If you have the CD single, they actually have both versions on there, the quote-unquote clean version, and it's not explicit, but the questionable version. But I don't know, you listen to the song, it kind of has a little bit of everything, even a rap solo.
I love the fact that you say you dated yourself by saying CD single. I think you would have dated yourself more if you said cuss single, and dated yourself way more if you had it on 45. But yeah, there we go. By the way, DJ Brett Law on social media, on X, chimed in with his picks as well. He also picked Faded as his spin track. I'm actually going with Gravity off of this one. So, of the songs that were released as a single, this is actually, to me, the best of the singles. And I could easily picture this one as a decent sing-along at a show. And the thing is, with Faded, yes, Faded is the big song off of this. I think I would rather see Gravity live.
You know, it's funny that you mention seeing it live. This is probably one of the biggest Canadian related acts that has had nonstop petitions for them to tour live, because if I'm not mistaken, they had a very small, like a small touring when they first made the album, and it was not even like their own tour. I think they opened for some other like Canadian band, and it was, I want to say like Sum 41 or something like that. Like, it was completely out of left field. But I agree, like, I would love to see these guys live. Gravity, I can see why you would want to see it live.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like yes, someone more on the rock side of things is going to go with the one that's a little less for commercial, I guess you could say. You mentioned touring. They actually toured, did a headline tour in 2001. They also toured with Destiny's Child. They were a support act for Christina Aguilera on her Genie in a Bottle tour. They were a support act for NSYNC. So, I mean, those are some big big spots for a new band.
Yeah, no, to have those big names, like, I don't want to say like these people peaked in that era, but like specifically Destiny's Child, obviously Dix, they're no longer together. But, you know, you have Destiny's Child, you're guaranteed a sold out show every time. So that's a ton of money in their pocket.
Well, once you realize too that, you know, this is on the Christina Aguilera Genie in a Bottle tour, like that song blew the F up, like for reals, right? So to be able to open for her on her tour, like that's massive, absolutely massive. So now we get to our shuffle picks here, and I'm going to give our shout out to DJ Brett Law again as well here. He shuffled Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy. For me, I'm going to go right to the end of the CD and the song Next Time. The song's got a decent bop to it. I mean, is it the best song on the disc? No, but I would put this up there, and I'm surprised this one didn't get released as a single.
Yeah, that's just the thing with these kind of bands. You have a lot of these songs that you're like, oh man, this is definitely single worthy, but there's just something a little bit more. The other songs kind of have that extra sparkle to them, which is why they're the singles.
A little bit of that extra sauce.
Yeah.
All right. What's your shuffle pick?
I am also going to go with Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy. Mainly because growing up watching stuff like YTV and Much Music and whatnot, you know, you'd have these Faded and Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy are actually back-to-back music videos. They intertwine with each other, not necessarily story-wise, but somehow they're all connected.
I find it funny that my shuffle pick is the end of the CD, and both yours and DJ Brett Law's is the first track of the CD. So we've bookended quite nicely.
Yeah. This too, like the song is... There's something about the song, and I'm going to get into it right now, which is it too also had some controversy. So when SoulDecision originally made the song, they were demoing as Indecision. And the demo is all over YouTube. It's not that hard to find. But one of the biggest problems it had was that it sounded identical to George Michael's Fast Love. So people were like, you ripped off George Michael. You guys should not be doing this. How is this even getting cleared? So they eventually renamed, thought that they did a good enough job re-recording the song. But that's still the issue. It still sounds like George Michael. Even the singing melody is the same. But it's crazy, no pun intended, how catchy the song is. And it's one of those, it's so catchy that it gets annoying, which is why it's in my shuffle, because I'm like, oh yeah, we'll let this play. It's a good song, but I would repeat Faded over Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy any day.
I think it's interesting too, because like obviously with the song being a single, you run the risk of, especially if you're like all of a sudden like one of the hot properties on like pop radio, you do run the risk of being overplayed to death. And I think I find it fascinating that for me, coming into this album pretty much fresh, never really, I mean, I knew of Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy. I knew Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy more than I knew Faded. Let's put it that way. And maybe it's because like the Ooh, It's Kinda Crazy lyric kind of stands out a little bit more than Faded. I can maybe equate that. But the thing is, of my songs so far, one's not even a single. One's like one of the last singles that was released, so probably nowhere near as popular, you know. And between you and DJ Brett Law, you both went with the biggest of the singles. So it's interesting, and I wonder if that's one of the things where it's like, if you know the band and you like the band, you're gonna lean to the ones that got, you know, the attention. And if your brand spanking new to it, maybe you do gravitate towards. And that's the other thing too. This album came out 24 years ago. And if you liked it, I'm sorry for the gray hair you now have on your head. But that being said, it's like after a while, you can go back and redigest these songs and get the, the mass radio play oversaturation kind of flush from your system and get to reappreciate it.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened with me here. Like, I've always had Faded playing even up until now. Like, that's currently always in my playlists. But when I had suggested the album, it had been a really long time, not 24 years long, but it had been quite a long time since I've heard the full album. And it's funny, I used to own it growing up. And then, just with moving and whatnot, things get lost or broken or just sold, whatever. But I ended up going to a thrift store and finding it, and that's how I rediscovered the album. And I went, man, like, other people should hear this. But then at the same time, I feel really bad for showing this to a lot of people.
But the thing is, right, there is no, and I stand by this, there is no right or wrong in music, right?
No.
There's what you like and what you don't like. And that is the only arbiter of whether a song is good or bad to you, the person, right?
Absolutely.
There is no set definition to what is a good song and what is a bad song. And I say that before I ask you what your skip pick is, because I stand by the sentiment that when we pick our skip songs, we're not necessarily saying it's a bad song. We are literally picking our least favorite track on the CD. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. So I'm going to go to you, and I'm going to ask you first, before you say what your skip song was this an easy pick for you?
Yes. well, yeah.
So what's your skip song?
My skip song was Feeling You. I was originally going to go with No One Does It Better, because I'm not a huge fan of that sort of like boy bandy, silky sort of music.
It's silky smooth.
It's silky smooth. But with Feeling You, I immediately got the ick to the whisper singing.
Oh, God. You must hate Billie Eilish.
Well, I don't listen to Billie Eilish. It's not that I don't like her or anything. I don't listen to not a lot of modern music, honestly. But when I could hear him sort of like doing his like not necessarily trying to sound young, but like not necessarily whispering either. Just I don't even want to redo it because it's so cringy. I was like, next. Oh, I skipped. I couldn't even listen to the whole song. I went, this is definitely going to be my skip song. This is, if I had any hair left on my head, it would do something. I don't know.
Look at the bright side. Not having hair on your head means that it won't go gray, which means you're not easily identifiable as someone who had a CD single.
Or does it make me super identifiable because I don't have hair?
Quite possibly. I'm going to say right now that DJ Brett Law and I both agreed on our skip tracks, and that track is Baby Come Back. Right from and again, this is from Person, like right from the little mini rap intro. And it's funny that you mentioned the rap part of Faded. For here, the little mini rap intro to this song, which... And again, this is personal preference here. This is not, if you love this song, I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, but this is personal opinion. This is the most vanilla elevator I think I went on this entire CD. But then it also has a mini rap intro. Like, I can't even. There are good songs on this CD, and it's not even like my go-to genre. This song ain't one of them.
No. I love that. Vanilla Elevator.
Although that being said, Vanilla Elevator would be a really, really cool swing jazz punk band. I'm just saying that right now. But it's nothing against the production. It's nothing against the songwriting. It's just, it does not connect with me. Gravity, next time, I can get behind those, right? Regardless of genre, regardless of instrumentation, I can get behind those. Baby Come Back, it just did nothing for me.
I'm really happy that Players' Baby Come Back is what people know when they hear that song and not this one here.
Alex, before we go, I want you to remind our listeners, what were your spin, shuffle, and skip picks?
So my spin pick was Faded. My shuffle was Ooh, It's Kind of Crazy. And my skip was Feeling You.
And for me, my spin track was Gravity, my shuffle track was Next Time, and my skip pick was Baby Come Back, the vanilla elevator of that song. Alex, before we go, I want you to let our listeners know where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
You could find me on YouTube at AC Official Music Page and on Instagram under Photographs by AC. That's right. I also take pictures. Yeah.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for this. And we will see you on the next episode of Spin, Shuffle, Skip. And to you, our listeners, thank you so much for listening to this. Now, you guys know the drill. If there is a CD that you want us to cover, whether it be by an artist or a soundtrack or a compilation, whatever the case, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, go to our Coming Soon page where you can actually see and fill out forms to comment on all the upcoming episodes that we are recording. So that's a good idea if you want to find out what we're up to. Until next time, he's Alex, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is Spin, Shuffle, Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, available wherever you get your podcasts or on Live 365, and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
To celebrate joining Pantheon Podcasts, Rock Camp, the podcast, the official podcast of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, is giving away a guitar signed by Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater, Marty Friedman, formerly of Megadeth, and legendary shredder Zakk Wylde, plus our rockstar counselors like Vinny Appice, Monty Pittman, and more. To enter to win, simply follow, rate, and review our podcast on your preferred platform, and that's all you have to do. For more information, go to rockcamp.com/podcast.